Hi there. Welcome to the January RunJumpDev meeting. We've got M. Joshua with us this evening, and I've got to take a minute just to tell you a little bit about us, about RunJumpDev. We're a group of game developers here in Lexington, Kentucky. We are friendly. We have public meetings every Tuesday evening around 6:30 at Awesome Inc. down on Main Street downtown. And we'd love to see you. If you want to come out and see what people are working on, bring your own prototypes. If you're stuck on something, ask questions. We can work through a tough spot in your project. We'd love to have you out. And that's every Tuesday night. We also have Game Dev Lou on the chat tonight, joining us on the stream. And they're going to be here for questions and stuff later on. If you happen to be around Louisville, stop by Game Dev Lou's brand new co-working and event space, Warp Zone. They just moved in there, and they're about to have their first global game jam there this weekend, which would be great if you're in the area. And their next meetup, they have regular meetups every other Sunday, and that'll be 2 weeks after Global Game Jam on let's see, Valentine's Day, February 14th. And yeah, check out LouisvilleMakesGames.org for more information on Game Dev Lou and the new Warp Zone. And we've got some events coming up, but I'm going to tell you about those toward the end of the session after we have our wonderful speaker today. We've got M. Joshua here. Josh is going to talk to us a little bit about crafting game trailers from a player perspective, make these really attractive. So with that, I will turn it over to Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. So yeah, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about, well, why I make indie game trailers, why they're essential for today, why they're for players and not really devs, capturing the player's emotional journey, my experience with making trailer for Dragon Cancer. So right now, I would just to give a little bit of a preface about me. I'm probably most well known for being the guy who made That Dragon Cancer trailer. And so yeah, I'll just explain a little bit more about my journey with that, and give you some ideas about what to expect with your trailers, how trailer making is game dev, and also all that you need to know about capturing your soul into a trailer and making that available to the world. And also some certain questions about the press and what happens behind the scenes when making trailers, things like that. So in general, that's what we're going to be talking about. And so the first question that I really have for you, and I'm a guy who really, really likes questions, and so my first question is for you, when do you need a trailer? When do you need your trailer? It's just a question I want you to put kind of like in the back of your head, because the question used to be, do you need a trailer? And that's still valid to a certain extent. But if you're talking about digital distribution in any sense, or making indie games these days, it's kind of unlikely, unless you're not going to be using Steam or itch.io or any kind of major publication or actually selling your game, that you won't need a trailer. So yeah, the key question is, when do you need your trailer? And this is a trailer is kind of an essential thing, because back in the day, we had these nice little boxes. I have my perfect pristine copy of Mario 3, just because this is something that's like, it's really super attractive now, because we no longer use game boxes. We don't really have game boxes as much, especially not in the indie space. And for those really, really, indie darlings who get to the point where, hey, we really need a box for this, it's kind of like just, there's not really a real reason for it. But back in the day, if you got Mario 3, you would flip it over and look at what's on the back, and you can see there's like a big paragraph of text, and just kind of like outlines features. That's not really that useful. Nobody really wants to read a paragraph of text about Mario 3. You'd probably rather get your hands on it and actually like get a feel for it, see what the sticky friction is like, see what the jumping looks like, see what the new abilities are with its Nuki suit. All those things look like in the actual game. And so the spirit of a game is so much more transmittable through a trailer. And I don't mean to really try to sell you guys on the idea of trailers. You all have seen trailers, you watch trailers. It's kind of like a part of our economy. But the nice thing about a trailer is that it kind of puts something in someone's hands, just like having a box art back in the day put something in someone's hand. A trailer is like, even though it's not physical in your hand, you can share a link, you can share a copy of it to someone else. So there's something really beneficial about the the tactile nature, the feeling of proximity of a trailer to an actual game. And by the way, one of the things while I'm thinking about like old games and how things used to be, um, I well in my bio I included a bit about how back in 1999 I made my first game commercial, and that was kind of like found the 1990s style of game commercials, which is like, let's show 20 seconds of nonsense, and then we'll show 5 seconds of game, and then leave the last 5 seconds to show you how to get it. And I think that I'm not the only one who was like, this kind of sucks. Like, why don't they show you more game? And so I think we're in a really fortunate space now because we can actually see what games look like and just show like pure gameplay in a lot of cases. And so I think that it's really great, but gameplay needs to hook people. It needs to be something that people can latch onto. So just to back up a little bit, but I want that question to be in your head somewhere. Is that when do you need a trailer? Because sometimes you'll need one like right before launch. That's the obvious case. If you have a commercial product, you're going to want to put the trailer right before launch. But if you are in kind of alpha stage and you just need awareness to get out there, that's also a very important stage when you're going to need a trailer too. So there's different times, different seasons, different purposes. But the key question that I always have, it's the first thing that I ask people when I meet with them, when they say they need a trailer is, well, when? So for me personally, I had like a background in production, video, design, that whole world, and I actually all the way back in like high school, I started out thinking I want to be a game developer. I want to make games. I want to be a game designer. I don't want to actually like do any of the code. I just want to make games. And that kind of like sat in the back of my mind for a long time. Like I was just like, maybe one day, hopefully one day. And then several years ago, I saw the indie game boom, and it was like a portal opened up in my backyard, and I was able to like finally jump into like my dream. And so I just sucked down everything that I could possibly get of indie games. And it just unlocked this huge potential for me, and not only what games could be, but I also was like, personally, I was very enamored by the possibility of capturing games from like a spiritual perspective. Like I saw Journey and I saw Braid and I saw these games and I was like, there's something about this that speaks deeper to the soul, deeper to the hearts of men, that goes beyond what games I've done before, and I just wanted to be there for it. And it was like, no longer was it just a dream. It was something that was real. And trailers were like, I don't know, like I'd watch a trailer and I'd just be like completely affected by it, and just every trailer that I watched, this weird thing, like I kind of started collecting trailers. But the most important thing that I'd say to a developer, in the very first things you want to start thinking about in trailers, is that well, all right. So Thanksgiving several years ago, I was at my dad's house and my mom and dad's house, and my dad's buddy was there, and he's like, "Hey, what's that there? Could you pass that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's not for you." And it was just like really, but I try to be funny sometimes. It doesn't always work. And the point being that there's a case in making that you think a trailer is for you, but it's really not. Especially if it's for your game, you think that it's a trailer is being made for your game, but it's not. And players, if you're a developer, you have an extreme literacy in game verbs, in what's going to happen between the kinds of interactions that are possible in a game. And it's a lot easier for us as devs to think of it like think of it like we know what's going to happen, and for the average player, they just don't quite get it. So there needs to be a little bit more of a bridge between things. They need help in getting your game, a lot of the case. And this is most obviously the case in like the puzzle genre, because there's the core thing that gets people to play a puzzle game is that moment of breakthrough, but that can be really hard to translate, like breakthrough within a puzzle game without absolutely spoiling the game. Um, there's to use a little bit more of an obvious metaphor is in the world uh, of the game Sports Friends. If you've heard of Sports Friends or if you're familiar with the local multiplayer genre, of course, um, by making a trailer that was entirely focused on the actual players of the game, they were able to communicate how the gameplay experience was far more than actually like showing the game and then saying this is so much fun. So there needs to be like a bridge to the player, and that's the key I'm constantly thinking about is how do you create that bridge to the player? And I think the core question, and this is something that you almost want to write down, like on the top of your design documents, is what kind of players are we looking for? So that's just another one of those core questions. It's really, really important. Okay, I keep saying the most important thing. It's one of those things I always say. It's kind of like in production, you always say just one more shot. But just the one thing that I always emphasize above all else is you need to make people want to play your game. If no one wants to play your game, then uh, then something's not working about your trailer. And I like to use the example of a game called Galaxy. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Galaxy. It's made by the same studios that made Shogun, Shadow of the. Nah, I'm forgetting the name of it. Anyway, uh, but they have this extremely rich character and 1980s Macross style of presentation that's really, really great. But and the gameplay that they show in their trailers, they made a lot of trailers and they all had kind of the same feel. It's like gun battle, or not gun battles, but space battles with a lot of like zero G friction. So you see the ship kind of like drifting and feeling like there's the absence of gravity and the purity of momentum that grabbed me. I was like, I saw the movement in this game and the way that everything hit one another, and I was like, I want that. And then I got the game, and I was like, okay, it's like 4% of the game, and most of the game is you trying not to hit or trying not to be seen by the enemy. So it's a lot more stealth. But you don't necessarily want to show like not trying not to be seen by the enemy. It doesn't necessarily show well. So um, the point is that you really want to try to find the one thing that makes people want to play your game, even if it's just a small fraction of the game, and really hone in on that aspect. Um, and the key is heartstrings. You just need to get people's heartstrings pumping. Um, and to do that, you have to capture the emotional journey. Um, the best trailers make people laugh or cry or have some sort of feeling afterwards. Um, I once said that the best trailers make me cry, and that there have been very few indie game or game trailers in general that have elicited that reaction. But I think that's kind of the goal is to have some kind of emotional reaction. You want to make people feel something through your game. But the challenge, I know this is the challenge because you're probably questioning right now. Well, my game isn't like a game that is about emotions. It's an action game, or it's just I don't know, just a puzzle game. Still, there's emotions that are key inside of that are like the breakthrough moments, the stress and release of stress. That's like part of the experience of an action game. You have to capture that to be able to capture your audience. And so, in a certain sense, when I had to make the trailer for that Dragon Cancer, it was kind of it was kind of like my job was already done for me in a certain sense, because that Dragon Cancer is obviously a super duper emotionally affecting game. Um, so it seemed like it was pretty easy in a certain sense, but then came the art, the challenge, the nuance of it, and I'll get to that in a moment. But for those of you guys who don't know what that Dragon Cancer is, I would explain it as Ron Green and his wife Amy had a son who he was a year old. His name was Joel, and at a year old he was diagnosed with a terminal cancer called an ATRT. It was a brain cancer, and so they just did everything that they could to fight this thing, and they spent a lot of nights in the intensive care unit in the hospital. And there was one time that Ryan was in the hospital. It was one of the particularly terrible nights where he couldn't get Joel to stop crying. And, the kid's going through radiation treatment and chemotherapy, and like, of course, he's miserable. And he just tried everything that he could. He tried to give him a juice box. He tried to bounce him up and down. He tried, just everything that he could think of. Tried to give him food, and nothing seemed to effectively stop him from crying. And actually, the crying got worse, and he got to a point where he just broke down, and just started talking to God and just prayed. And after a little bit, his son stopped crying, and he had the weird thought right there and then, this would make an interesting video game. Not a fun game. It's kind of the exact opposite of that. But one that would kind of subvert everything that you would expect a game to be. So here we are, fast forward several years. My expectations, I hear about this, I don't know, 4 years ago, when he first started really trying to tell people about the production, the idea of the game. And this is while his son Joel was still living. And so I just got super enamored with this project. I start following the developer. I start kind of like reading everything that I can about the game. And in the course of that, we develop a friendship. And I asked him if he wanted me to do the trailer, and I didn't hear anything back for a while. I just didn't hear anything back. And then at the beginning of December, he's just like, several months later, at the beginning of December, he's like, "Oh, we really need a trailer in like 3 weeks, and we think that you can do it." I'm like, "All right." And so I play the game, and my first surprise was that. Also, it was a very strange experience because the game is a testimonial game. So you're actually experiencing things, not only from Ryan's perspective, but also Amy's perspective of what their children were experiencing around Joel. The game opens with you feeding ducks, and it jumps around very, very much. So there's not kind of like a core mechanic, which makes it a little different. But the strange thing is that, like, my first time playing the game was while Ryan was actually watching me, kind of like you guys are watching me right now. I'm just like playing the game, and Ryan's watching me play the game while he is, in the game. So it's this weird thing where I'm like experiencing things from his perspective, and then like I have a comment on the game and he responds to me, and it was just super weird. Kind of one of those like, this doesn't happen very often kind of moments. But I walked out of the game feeling like I didn't cry as much as I thought that I would, and I'm a pretty heavy crier. Like I'll cry at like I watched some trailer today and it like made me cry. I don't even remember what it was. I remember what it was, but it was just like a strange thing. Like I'm usually very emotionally reactive, and I walked away from the game feeling like I only cried once, and it wasn't even a heavy cry. Like I thought that I was going to be bawling through the whole game. I was surprised that I didn't need a whole box of tissues, and so I walked away just enamored with this concept that like the game is about what Joel loves. It's about this little boy who he lived to 5, but he had the function level of a much younger child. And so there were only certain things that he loved. Like he loved the kiss of dogs. He loved blowing bubbles. He loved pancakes. He loved water and cups and bathtubs, and all, these are the little things that he loves. So the game is more about the things that he loves than what I thought. So I pitched them and I said, let's focus on what Joel loves, and you two as a couple, because so much of the game up to this point had been father and son story, and a lot of that's still the perception. But I wanted to maybe make it so that those who watch the trailer don't think that this is a game they're not going to be able to emotionally handle. And I still got like countless responses saying like, "Oh, I don't think I could handle that game." But I think it's more the idea that people have of the game than necessarily what was in the trailer. So that was my challenge going into it: was how do I convince people that this game, this game about cancer and death and loss, was actually joyful. Sort of a weird challenge for myself. So we had 3 weeks to do it, and then somewhere in the middle of the process, we're like, actually, let's try to do it in 2, which I don't think that was my first choice. But we crunched and we made it happen, and we got it out in time. So this was in so many ways like a dream project for me. But it's made me think a lot more about how to communicate each trailer differently. Like this was maybe, I don't know, one in like a dozen trailers that I've worked on, and I think that this one is I've learned that every trailer is completely different. Every game is completely different and requires a completely different solution. So even though I thought that I had an ideal solution, which is my shtick, my spiel, the thing that I do as a game trailer maker, is I focus on the player journey and how to make sure that it's clearly about the player, not just about the features of the game. Um, and so I don't know. I'm still learning as I go, and I think that that's part of the world of game dev. You're constantly learning. So, I want to give you an idea of what to expect from a trailer, and the number one spoiler and the thing that you'll hear me say again and again, um, this is a massive spoiler in a sense that making a trailer is game development. It doesn't seem like it going into it. It seems like, oh, that's just marketing or something over there, but you're actually capturing what is the connection between the game and actual players. So testing, player testing. I actually get the game in front of a variety of kinds of people. My wife and I mentor teens, and so we find ourselves sometimes in front of pretty young teenagers, and are able to get the game in front of them and see, really, what do you guys think of this? And so the very, very first thing that I do in this process is, we meet, I talk to you, and then I say, give me your game. Politely, I usually don't say it quite like that, but just give me your game. Let me get my hands on it. I need to be able to feel your heart. I need to be able to get in there and not only have you tell me about what the game is like, but actually see. And I know that sometimes, if you're in pre-alpha stage, you don't have a stable enough build to make available to me. So I understand that you're going to have to maybe just play the game on your own machine and kind of stitch together the core experience so that we can kind of communicate that in the very pre-alpha stages. But that's the core, is we need to get to your heart in this project. So you strip it down. You strip it down to, you get into the game, and of course you've got like hundreds of features. We need to get it down to one thing. We need to not go with the endless possibilities of what's possible in this game. Makes me think of No Man's Sky. There's endless possibilities. Well, what's the core feature? What's the one thing? It's why everybody watches a trailer for No Man's Sky and says, well, what am I doing? I want to know. You got to get to that core. You got to get to that heart. And so you strip it down to the one thing. It's the same thing with the trailer. What's the one thing? I almost want you to like write this down on your hand, on the back of your hand when you're working on things. What's the one, just one thing that you're working on in your game? And we're going to try to distill that into a trailer. And I know that you think that, and you want to put the word "and" on everything. It's like, well, we do this and this and this. No, one thing. It's so hard to do. And of course, you need to come up with a good concept. And this is a lot more art and less science. I'd love to say that there is a perfect solution if you are going to be making a local multiplayer game. Of course, you need to show people playing the game, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you need to show something different. It's not the right solution. One size never fits all. So a lot of the time, experimentation is key. So I try to provide like 3 treatments, 3 very rough ideas on what I think that your game's trailer should be like. And then I try to think about what's the human element. What's the core point that people are going to think that this is a game made by humans and not machines. This is a connection experience. This isn't just a bunch of ones and zeros or a math game or something. Not to say that math games are bad, but there has to be a human connection element. And so one of the things that's really helpful in this, and I'm glad that you guys had Ashley Birch on this before, because she actually made some amazing points about voice acting within games, which I think is super key. But there's also that aspect that I like to really emphasize for trailers. And the reason why in movie trailers and why you have the movie guy voice and that sort of thing is because the movies lack context and they need a narrator for context. Actually, having narration in film is generally discouraged because you want to show, not tell. But in a trailer, especially if your game, if you're communicating something that's never been done before, something that's extremely odd, a human voice and a human element can actually bring people into it a lot faster than just showing gameplay, which sometimes works, but again, you have to have a human element. And the other human element that's important in this stage is composers, the musicians who get their they live for this stuff. Like I've worked with a couple of composers, and you show them a video and say make music to this, and they're like yes. It's just like everything comes to fruition. And I'm the guy who likes to say, I want to have the sound first, and so I can edit to it, because that to me is like, yeah, it feels good. Well, it works both ways. More often than not, I'm the guy who's putting together the cuts and then passing it off to the composer. So that's my experience. And you got to go through all the steps of the process. You don't want to skip steps in the production process, because that's how you end up with, I don't know, just complete glaring holes, and you miss really critical parts in the process. So I just want to kind of walk you through the key things that happen. So the very, very first thing happens is that I talk to you. We get together, we talk over Skype, over Hangouts or whatever, and we get the contract signed. But actually I skipped the step. Well, I put my notes out of order. So we get together and we talk. And I put together a couple of concepts, and there's a bunch of concepts. There's just really rough ideas on what I think this should be. We put together some estimates. We put together an idea on how it's all going to turn out. And it usually simmers for a little bit, to be honest. We go back and forth on pitches and estimates, and just making sure everything comes together. And then finally, when everything's good, it's like, all right, you got 50% up front, and I try to make sure that that's super clear. Is like, we're all professionals here. I need production cash to be able to make things flow and get all the voice acting and whatever needs to happen in there. So I do ask for 50% up front. And then we truly begin once the contract's all signed. And then, so that's like, I call that the startup, but it's like the pre-production, because then you get into the pre-production phase, which is where the actual construction really takes shape. So you have a general treatment, and the general treatment, it says, I don't know, we're going to use, for that Dragon Cancer, we said we're going to use the spin and say, or the see and say, as kind of a framing device of core player interaction, and we're going to see the player interact with that, and then each time it spins around, it's going to say something. At first, it focuses on kind of like the barnyard animal to kind of like emphasize this is something Joel loved, and then we're going to go into the actual player thoughts, and so the spin and say actually morphs into this kind of a more serious thing, and you see like the head of Ryan and head of Amy, the doctor, and you can pick which one is going to be speaking, or whose thoughts you're going to hear, and that's kind of the framing device. And so you have this juxtaposition of husband and wife, and so that was just all that I said in the treatment. And then once we got to the pre-production, I actually fleshed that script out. So this is exactly what we're going to say. This is what's going to happen in these moments. And then we got into the necessities that we need. We have to get the basics, like art, like the fonts, the logos, the make sure that we figure out what's going to go on the end badge of our call to action. Do we need, in that case, we needed an Ouya logo, and so that I had to drum one of those up. And so then after I get all the client assets, then we go into the script refinement, just making sure that we get everything refined. Now this is the key. This is what I said earlier about this is a collaborative process. This isn't just me doing things on my end. This whole process is kind of an interactive thing, and I love to say that it's just someone hands me, says go make my trailer, and I'm like, all right, boop, 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 here you go. But it's a lot more demanding and a lot more interactive than that. But it kind of is this nice thing because it puts the developer in the role of critic, which I think is a lot more fun than producer, because you can just say, yeah, just make a few changes, make it what you want it to be. And so then I take that script and I turn it into a visualization. I capture just a couple parts of the game and kind of say, here's what we're gonna. It's basically a storyboard, but it's a visual script so that it's a Google Doc so that there's constant collaboration even throughout that whole process. And around that time, if we need a voice actor, and of course, in that Dragon Cancer's case, we just needed the assets from the game. You know, that's where we brought in the voice actor situation. Production happens. This is where you get into the actual game capture. And so this can actually be tricky. It depends upon, of course, your platform of choice, the dynamics of the game. In a lot of cases, it can be very simple. With a lot of Steam games, it's extremely simple. You just have to have really nice capture software like Fraps, or I use a program called Action to capture the game at maximum settings. Make sure you get it at its maximum beauty. A lot of people like to use capture cards like a Blackmagic. And then you typically end up having to recapture the game again later. Because the capture process typically is, just like everything else, it's a process. It's finding the right shots, lining everything up, and trying to get a feel for things before it feels like a real trailer. So without sound, or without a soundtrack, the trailer doesn't start to feel real until you get in kind of to the later stages of post-production. But at least you can get a sense of the timing and the story that you're telling at this point in the phase. So we acquire all non-score music or all the things that I'm going to be editing to if it wasn't something that they if in the rare case that the soundtrack has been provided up front. And then it really gets into the production phase. I usually make an animatic. I mean, all of you guys know what an animatic is, but just making sure that we have the core situation. This is what we're going to see. This is what we're going to hear, and putting that on screen, keeping it as rough as possible. Because the key here, this is what happens. This is typically gets to this phase, and then there's some changes. It's like we start to realize once we see all the pieces in place, it's not quite working. So this is where pivots happened. With a trailer that I made, if you go to mjoshua.com, you can see the trailers I made. There's one for a game called Archmage Rises. And we started out with this project, and we were like, I know the solution to this problem. You have a pre-alpha game. It's a hard thing we're not going to be able to just put this in front of players and get their experience. We're just going to say, you play the game, talk us through your game, and we'll make kind of like a dev diary kind of thing. And it did not test well. It did not work well at all. It was like people were like, "Wow, this guy sounds really smart." And so I realized that we need to. Well, he was the first one who was like, "All right, this obviously isn't working." I'm like, "All right, let's come up with a different solution." And we started to brainstorm together. And again, this is a collaboration. This wasn't just me. This was us talking together. And Thomas came up with the idea of saying like, well actually it was feedback from our testers. It's like, well, we need to have an actual voice actress in this. And I was like, yeah. And so we kind of completely redrafted the entire script at this point, still showing the same gameplay, but completely changing the auditory tone. I could probably provide a copy of this for those of you that ask. See a version which was almost identical in edits, but completely the opposite in tone, audio, and feel, because we didn't use a voice actress to kind of guide the story. And so anyway, I'll simply say that in the post-production process, the entire project can shift, and that's okay. And so around that time, once you get to the second draft, then you start getting to timing refinements, and the soundtrack musician kind of comes into place if you're working with a score, and then comes in the stage of serious motion graphics. I usually try to keep the motion graphics outside of the process, so it doesn't look finalized, it doesn't look sharp, the animation doesn't look good for a long part of this process, because I like keeping things pliable. I like being able to adjust things, and once you get into the fine-tuned animation, of course, it gets much more stone-like. So then we have a discussion, making sure that everything is going the way that it needs to, and then just refine it until it's done. I usually commit to saying, just try to stick to three drafts, because you can run into never-ending territory of let's keep trying to make it better. With anything, it's, well, are we out of money? No. Can we can make it better? Yes. Let's keep trying until it's better. Well, let's try to minimize that as much as possible, and just test it first, and then if it's not perfect, then we'll make the few refinements that we need to. But I'm always concerned with budget. It's not the thing that you most likely like to talk about with a production. But budget is super duper important to me because I know that indie devs don't really have much money, and usually I work with developers to figure out like a good working plan for that. So we get to the final handoff, hand it off for YouTube, or typically you want your trailer on YouTube. Vimeo works, but Vimeo is kind of a headache these days. It's no longer better than YouTube in my personal experience. So the most important thing is that you have a high quality format file, and I just make that available to you. I provided a thumbnail, working thumbnail that works to capture the spirit of the game. And that's one of the first questions I usually ask. Is what's the thumbnail of your game? That's a good question to write down. Is what's a good thumbnail of your game? And then it usually takes, this whole process usually takes about 12 business days, so about 2.5 weeks, give or take. Sometimes there's rushing, and typically rush fees apply. But once we get to the end process, you have to be ready for the handoff. If you're not ready for the handoff, it's kind of like you get the trailer, and it's kind of like, oh, what do we do now? And a lot of you guys in Lexington know Justin Fox. He's actually how I'm connected with you guys. And we got to this point with this trailer. We're like, all right, we need to figure out how to get this in front of people. And it became that was actually the first trailer that I made. And I was very, very concerned with how do I make a better handoff, because I needed to do this better, and it was my fault that I didn't prepare him better for this. But there's 3 things you need to think about when you start talking about a handoff. It's the press, so gaming publications, the Polygons, IGNs of the world, and this is, the Twitters and the YouTubers. These are those who will take one look at your trailer and will be able to tell you kind of within like 5 seconds whether or not they're going to want to stream or whether or not they're going to want to make a Let's Play out of it. So that's kind of like part of your design process, almost in the back of your head. All the way back at the beginning is like, what are they looking for? Because these, like, recently, one of my favorite stories, I was talking to Tiny Build Games. They recently published Punch Club, and some of you guys might be familiar with a project that they just did, which was Twitch Plays Punch Club. And it was wildly successful. They thought, with Twitch Plays Pokemon, they thought, it took a very long time for them to finish Pokemon. Same thing with Dark Souls. I don't know that they ever actually finished Dark Souls. But when they played Punch Club, the publisher Tiny Build was like, this will take a while. We got some time, and it took 36 hours. So it was extremely successful, and they've actually been very profitable with the game because of the Twitch Plays version of the game, which was kind of a surprise to I think everybody. But it's something that's made me think a lot more about the handoff and the transition from trailer to Twitch players and YouTube players. So anyway, that's all that I really have. I'm just going to give a recap on what I shared. But you got to always ask the core question of when do you need a trailer? Then make sure that your trailers, you have to have a trailer because they're essential for today. They're for players, not for you. Capture the player's emotional journey. Make players want to play your game. That's always, I guess that's probably number one, is just make people want to play your game. Know how to make people want to play your game. I shared with you, of course, my experience with That Dragon Cancer. I gave some ideas on what to expect with a trailer, and reminders that making a trailer is game dev. And give you a little bit of a rundown of my overall production process. And once again, think about YouTubers and Twitchers. I hope you enjoyed. You can check out my work at mjoshua.com, and I'm on Twitter as mjoshua. So I guess that's all. And yeah, hopefully that helps you out if you're going to be doing a DIY trailer, or if you're going to go to me or another trailer maker.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Sure, thank you.
All right, so we'll go into some questions.
Awesome.
We can take questions on Twitter if you're watching the stream. You can tweet at RunJumpDev, and our team here will tackle you. And over at Game Dev Lou, we neglected to establish the signaling. Yeah, if somebody wants to wave if when they have a question, we can go to you guys. So I will start us off.
Awesome.
So my question is, you said that you playtest trailers,
Mhm.
and could you talk a little bit about your process for that, like how you present it or what that's like?
Sure. So a lot of that comes down to what communities typically are you a part of. So this comes with a little bit of an assumption, so that you have, namely, that you have a certain level of uh, fan community behind your game. You have at least, I don't know, like a Facebook group of maybe only even like 30 to 50 people, but that's enough to be able to get whatever version of trailer that you have in front of just a select audience, to say, we like this, we don't like that. And sometimes it can be really, really helpful in moving forward. That's not for everybody, but the key is to audit the communities that you're a part of. So getting the trailer in front of other people, but having a specific set of questions. Because typically when you're playtesting a trailer, you have it in a very early stage, so that's it's kind of obvious that this isn't right. But you should have a core question, like the number one is, how did you feel about the narration, or how did you feel about the game, what you had seen of the game, and kind of a qualifying question is already out the window of, is this game interesting to you if they're a part of your community? So if they're a fan of the game that or they're a part of a group that has already seen your game in some capacity, that can be really, really huge. Because if you start putting this in front of people who don't know your game and aren't part of your actual testing audience, like if you just want to go put this in front of friends and family, that can work, but that can give you some really negative advice. Like, and I don't mean negative in the sense that like they're gonna like give you bad advice. It's probably the opposite. They're gonna give you like, hey, it looks good, buddy, and that's not really helpful for what you're asking. So, in a good A/B test, you have one example and a separate example, and you can do A/B tests. That's pretty effective. To use Justin Fox's game Re-Elise as an example, when we were making that trailer, we had two versions. We had one, at least at one stage, we had one version that had a hip hop soundtrack, and then we had one version that had a no hip hop soundtrack, so that you didn't have it happening, because we were really not sure whether rap in game trailers has kind of a tumultuous history, or in video games in general has a tumultuous history, and my mind goes straight to the Donkey Kong 64 rap. But we tried it, we tested it out, and it was like, this is working. So we went with it.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I do the social media.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi. The first question I have is from Two Scoops, and it's, what's your favorite ice cream? And that's sorry, they always ask it.
Oh man, I just like anything that I can dump. I can dump like nuts into, like any kind of ice cream with lots of nuts. I
So
like.
you're
I
more of
like.
like a sundae kind of guy,
Yeah.
less of an ice cream, more of
Oh,
a
I really
sundae.
like turtle sundaes. That's definitely one of my favorites. Like, so pecans.
Awesome. I have another question. Okay. Oh, yeah. What is your favorite example of trailers in like different styles? Because that there's like just like a sort of like there's different types of trailers, I guess. And so one of our Twitter questions, which was from Eric, was what's sort of your favorite trailers in different styles?
Oh man, yeah. So, yeah, there's so many different kinds of trailers and different styles. It's kind of a funny thing. So I do have to say right off the bat, my favorite trailers are made by a guy by the name of Kurt Gartner. He has made pretty much all the greatest trailers out there. Like, he made one for Mushroom 11. He made the one for Dropsy. These are kind of obscure games, but he made for Towerfall, and man, why am I not? Sunset. Anyway, he's just the guy. He makes all the trailers for Devolver. For Hotline Miami 2, that's his work. So he's kind of like a huge inspiration to me in terms of noticing that there's always kind of a different solution for different kinds of games. And so I'd love to say that I have a particular kind of favorite trailer. And I want to use the cop-out artist answer. It's all of them. But to be even more specific, I did create an article a little while back on Gama Sutra. It was the 11 best trailers of 2015. I try to compile all the best trailers that I see, and it gets to be a little bit of a more work because I love writing. My background is as a little bit more of a writer than just a producer. But I'm constantly thinking about how to what is the best trailer, and my favorites are the ones that have really, really good narration. Like just a really, really great narrator. So even though I gave an example of No Man's Sky kind of as this example of like, well, what do you do? My favorite trailer was the one that they did recently, earlier this year. I'm trying to remember the actual voice actor was Rutger Hauer actually. So you had a very familiar voice, and there's this air of like Rutger Hauer's older now, so he kind of sounds like a grandpa, and so I like anything that sounds like a grandpa, but that's just a personal preference.
So you're a big fan of, I guess, Bastion?
I'm a big fan of Supergiant's games. Yeah. Bastion and Transistor are some of my favorites. Actually, Transistor was one of those trailers when they first showed the first 15 minutes of gameplay, and like it wasn't exactly a trailer, but it was like a really, really long trailer for 15 minutes, obviously, and I just kept it on repeat for like a long while. So yeah, that's definitely my preference and taste. My favorite trailer for last year is the Long Dark Story Mode trailer. So yeah, check that one out.
Hi, Josh. How you doing?
Hi, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, buddy. Definitely. So you said something in the beginning that just kind of caught my ear. It was about when you're in a trailer, when you're showing, if you have a small amount that you really love about your game, you show that one part.
Yeah.
But my thought was, it's the one part that you love and everything, the one part that you want people to get. But wouldn't you want to share all of it? I mean, I know you want to. I know you don't want to give out like the whole thing. Like today, you see trailers for like movies. Pretty much, we find out everything possibly. So, are you saying?
Yeah, I hate those. Those are my least favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. So you're pretty.
I would think of it like this. I'd think of it kind of like you're working towards that heart. Mm-hmm. You're working towards that. That is what you're trying to get at. And sometimes it takes some build-up. So like if you have a game like FTL, obviously it's going to take us a little bit of time to be able to get across the complexity of what are you actually doing in this game and trying to get people into that brain space.
Right.
And so there's a lot of devices that you need to do to be able to get people to that point. And so it's just trying to get there as fast as possible, because that's where you want people to see. You want people to see that. You want to see people see you're precious, you know? So it's all about getting to that. And sometimes, to use the traditional 3-act structure, you have your introduction, your rising action, your climax, and then you have your resolve. So obviously the climax is your heart. That's where you want everything to go to that point. But you need to think about how you get there from behind, leading up to that point. And so that's kind of like what I'm always after is how let's just focus on this one thing. I know you have all those other features. We can pepper those features in the process of getting there, but we're really trying to get to this one thing.
Okay, I understand. So it's more about, yes, it's the one thing that you truly enjoy, that one thing you really want to show, and you have to show that over time throughout the whole trailer itself. You just can't have it at the beginning. You're saying, right?
Right.
It has to just come over time. It has to. Yes, I'm sorry. It comes out over time. Just how the whole trailer works together, just to get that emotion and get that feeling about the true message of the game and everything. That pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core of it. Now there's an aspect of showing. There's an aspect of showing things leading up to what your core is. And sometimes it can be okay to just establish, because I mean, if you're making a couch multiplayer game, you don't want to wait until like the last minute, to really emphasize, hey, this is a couch multiplayer game.
Right.
So you have to build the core of that. And And you can establish that reality up front. The core reality of couch multiplayer is typically, you're going to have fun with other people. But how do you get to the? It's not just that you're having fun with other people. There's something beyond that. There's something deeper than that. There's to use. What's a good example? So, I'm sorry. What was that? I heard something. Okay. Anyway, but if you get to let's just use Towerfall because it's the most obvious example. So the core that you're trying to get with Towerfall is that aspect of, yes, I got him, and that breakthrough moment of I won, which isn't necessarily every couch multiplayer game, but there's something about trying to topple the other guy and hopefully I can get it the next time, which is still very similar to a lot of other games in there. But there's something unique to that spirit within Towerfall, and it's harder to get to that than the obvious, we're going to just go straight for it. And if you watch kind of in their promotional trailers, what Kurt Gartner did with the Towerfall Dark World trailer, there's the specificity, there's the uniqueness of the game that comes through in his work, and that is not as in the immediate sense. With that Dragon Cancer, obviously we're trying to get to the fact that this is a game about a family dealing with a very serious issue. But what I really wanted to, if you look at the narrative structure of that, the crescendo of it is, here's the things that Joel loves. Here's the joy in his life. Here's the core joy. And I think that's what you want to think about for your trailer more than anything else. Is how do we get people to that core? And it's established in the beginning of that Dragon Cancer trailer, but it's easing people into that, peppering it with a couple of other facts, and getting to that core. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
It caught my ear, definitely. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi, thanks very much for your talk.
Yeah.
There was a game recently in the past few years that did not do nearly as well as a pretty high-budget game, Brutal Legend. And the producers actually blamed the trailer for the lack of success of the game itself. They publicly blamed it. And I'm just curious to see what your thoughts were on that, where it went wrong and where it should have gone right.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to the Brutal Legend trailer because it's not in the front of my mind. However,
or just generically what could have brought what to avoid in the process to have that happen.
I would go to this is I'm going to use two examples. So my buddy is currently writing a book about the what works on Steam. Just a pretty broad, how to do marketing on Steam kind of book. And he found out that the Kerbal Space Program is probably one of the most popular, constructive games on Steam, except for when people watch the trailer, it actually discouraged people from buying it. They're like, no, I don't want this. I thought it was this other thing. And the reason why, if you look at, if you go and you check out the Kerbal Space Program base trailer, you see these kind of, the Kerbals are like minions. They're just these kind of goofy, dumb-looking characters, and they're just doing dumb, goofy things. You don't actually see what the game is about. You don't see the core gameplay. You don't see. It doesn't capture the player's experience. And so this is why I'm super duper emphatic on the player experience. Another game that is on the very similar spectrum is Project Cars. Another game that's pretty popular on Steam. It has a 7 out of 10 user rating, but it is, people watch the trailer and far more people go and buy the game after watching the trailer than most games, and that has something to do with that is one of the tightest trailers I've ever seen for a racing game, and it doesn't show a whole lot of actual races. It just captures the emotional journey of the player from car to car. I'm going to go try this one out. I'm going to try this one out. And I love going fast. That's not a huge story in a sense, but the trailer does that really, really well. And it's, again, that, player mentality, that player journey. And I'm going to go back and watch the Brutal Legend trailer right now. or after I'm off this call, because I'm really curious about what they did. But I imagine that they were trying to emphasize, this is Jack Black. This is a game about you being in the world, and there's action and metal, yeah, and like that might capture the vibe, but the player experience of that game is an action RTS. So if you're not actually trying to capture like what you're doing in the game and capturing those people, the people who are actually wanting to commit to the 20 hours to play through the game, you've missed.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, this is actually just a question for
Hi,
me.
Dan.
Can you have like a trailer that's like way too short, or like what is like I guess the sweet spot for like trailer length? I know it
Yeah.
probably
So
is,
there's
but-
this.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. There's kind of like this assumption that there's just kind of like a sweet spot. That's always true for all trailers, and that's not the case. Sometimes it's really important to go a lot longer. Tom Francis is currently working on a game called Heat Signature, and his trailers are wicked long. Like they sometimes go on for like, I don't know, I think I saw one was like 15 minutes. But the thing is, like, he's so charming. He's like this jovial British guy, and he's got this crazy personality that just comes through, and he just sucks you in. It doesn't even matter that it's wicked long. And then there's other trailers that you don't need much time at all. Like, I can't think of too many examples of really, really, really short ones. A lot of the big budget trailers, they have to cut it down to 30 seconds because they have major spots on Hulu or on television. So I do really like a good 30-second commercial that just captures like, this is why you like this. This is why it's good. Here you go. But it's kind of different tool for the job, the right tool for the right job kind of a thing. A couple of my trailers that I made lately have actually been a lot longer than I would prefer. The sweet spot, it's kind of obvious if you watch a lot of trailers. The sweet spot is 1 minute and 22 seconds. Sometimes it's, some will say it's 1 minute and 24 seconds, but it's, I'll say 1 minute and 23 seconds. Because that's just kind of like you just want to get as much in there as fast as possible, and that's kind of the takeaway. So if you're making a mobile app, you need to be shorter than that because you have shorter attention spans. And so I really like if you look at a lot of trailers for mobile apps, you'll see they don't usually go over 30 seconds, and I think that's pretty smart. The problem is that some games are a lot more complicated to really get across what you're actually doing, and I don't always feel like, most of the time when I watch mobile game trailers, I feel like they don't tell me enough. Like, what am I doing? Like, I see that looks like a puzzle, but what am I doing? And I don't feel like they always get to that point. So it's right tool for the right job.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool, thanks. I have one.
Cool.
I was curious, so I don't think you've yet used the word teaser, and I was curious if you have, if personally, what your feelings are on them, or what your distinction is between a teaser and a trailer, and what you'd use them for.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm gonna BS you because I don't have a perfect answer. But I mean, my feelings on the matter, because that's all that I can really offer, is that if you want to elicit interest, there is a very strong value in eliciting interest. But you're starting to find more and more kickback for, people. Everyone watches E3 these days. No one doesn't feel like they're at E3 because it's broadcast, and everyone knows when they see a trailer that's all cinematics. So in a sense, it's just a teaser because we have no idea how it's going to actually play, and that leaves a lot of people dissatisfied. But I think that a good trailer it does tease, but it gives you enough information. And so that's what's most important to me is that you give just enough information that someone is curious, because that's like that's what you want, is you want someone to be on the line. No one's going to watch a trailer for the first time and go out and buy a game. Like, I've never seen that happen. I don't think that happens. But if you watch something for several times, like I know, being a guy who watches trailers all the time, if I see a really good trailer, I'm probably going to watch it like 6, 7 times. And then when the game comes out, I'm probably going to go and buy it, but it's because of seeing something that you generate curiosity. And so I would say that as a good, if you are a good trailer maker, you are a master at curiosity. And that's, that's the only reason why I'm doing this is because I'm constantly curious about, what's that? What are you doing over there? What's this going to happen? So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially about curiosity.
I have one. All right. So I have this one. It's from Carter David Henning, and he says, "Do some genres or kinds of games work better with different trailer lengths than others? Any genre-specific trailer advice?"
Yeah, I would say it has a lot more to do with the complexity of the concept of the game. So, like with something like that Dragon Cancer, it's a longer trailer, and I think a lot of that has to do with the tone of the game is somber, obviously. So you want to take time to build that somber quality. You don't want to rush through something that serious. There's a reason why drama film is typically longer and slower, is because there needs to be air to breathe. If you have a complex concept, like I think a lot of Tom Francis's games are, that's probably why his trailer presentations are a lot longer, because he's trying to establish mechanics and rules in a genre that hasn't been standardized yet. If you're making just like a fast action game, if you're making a 2D platformer, you can make a trailer in 47 seconds. Like everyone is pretty literate in that kind of a game. But I say that if you're able to get the idea across to most people as fast as possible, make the trailer shorter. There are certain genres that maybe will require a longer period of time. I wouldn't necessarily confine it to a specific genre. Maybe if you're mixing and matching genres, it can be really tricky. Again, if you're doing an action game, it's always good to keep it as short as possible because you want it snappy,
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Earlier you mentioned that you really like trailers that make you cry, and just only a few game trailers have done that, and I heard that I may wonder what game trailer's done that for you.
It's going to be a little sappy.
It's pretty sappy.
A bird story? Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit self-aggrandizing because I feel like the best feedback that I got from that Dragon Cancers trailer was that it made people cry. So I don't want to be too that would be obviously self-serving, and I don't want. I've just done that, so forgive me. But a bird story is now I was truly emotionally affected by that trailer for some reason, and it wasn't like a very well done, good trailer. That's not the right word. It was a really done trailer, but it's not like they do this amazing thing with gameplay and visuals or something along those lines. It was just that I had such a deep investment in the creator's previous work, which was To the Moon, that game made me cry, and then I just knew there was something about it, and something with the music. It just emotionally affected me. Another one, I don't remember if it made me cry, but it super duper gripped me the moment I saw it. Was I think the first Brothers trailer for a Brother Tale of Two Sons by Starbreeze. Yeah, those are some that are super super impactful. Today I watched a trailer for. It wasn't even like. I don't want to say it wasn't good because it was obviously good because it affected me. But it was a trailer for a comic book. I'm gonna have to. Justin posted about it. Justin Fox posted about it. I'd have to drum it up to see what the name of it was. It was a game called Raising. It was a comic book called Raising Dion, and it's just a trailer for. I don't even understand why it's an extremely well produced, special effects rich, live action video trailer for a comic book. I don't quite understand the connection there, but it's about a single mom and her son and trying to hide from the world that he has supernatural powers. And there's something about that just I was like, oh man, why am I crying? So yeah, I mean, family and parents and that sort of thing is a little bit shorthand. I know, that's not going to affect everybody. Everyone emotionally responds to things differently. I had a lot of people who, couldn't make it past the first 20 seconds of that Dragon Cancers trailer, and the first 20 seconds of the trailer are like funny. So I don't, I don't, I understand that a lot of it is your journey and your experiences. For you, how about you? What are what's one trailer that like super duper emotionally affected you?
You're turning around on me.
Yeah.
So I can't say that I've seen a trailer that's emotionally gripped me to the point of tears.
Yeah.
Of course, I haven't seen that Dragon Cancers yet. But I remember one game trailer was very impactful for me was seeing Ori and the Blind Forest, their first trailer.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean, yeah. That game's beauty is absolutely captivating. I definitely cried playing the game, but I don't know. I mean, it's just got this amazing story of forgiveness and reconciliation that's like, so underexplored. Plus, the game's just like literally the most beautiful game I've ever seen. Not often that I can say that, but I completely mean it with that game. So cool, very cool.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah.
I'd like to add, have you seen the trailer for, I think it's called Becoming Human?
The new David Cage game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Detroit Becoming Human? Is that the subtitle?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one. The problem was I saw that literally after watching the movie Ex Machina. So I'm like, oh wait, this picks up where the movie left off. This is great. I do recommend watching that movie, Ex Machina. Super duper, like they're like perfectly compatible, those like two concepts. I was surprised that it was like almost like it literally was like same like crane angle like top down shot of the AI female walking through the city is just uncanny.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted the questions. Thank you
Awesome.
very much, Mr. Joshua.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate all your questions, your feedback, just being a great crowd, and having me here, just being able to talk. This is great.
Yeah, we really do appreciate it.
No problem.
I do want to make a few event announcements to finish up here. I'm going to hop off this mic, go to the other one. Hang on. All right, so I have these written down because we've got quite the schedule. So this was the RunJumpDev monthly meeting for January. We do this thing every last Wednesday of every month, and we try to get somebody cool like M. Joshua Cauller on the hook to show us something cool. We do have those Tuesday night meetups every Tuesday night at 6:30 at Awesome Inc. downtown Lexington. And please do come out if you've got something you want to show us, something you want to try out, problem you're having. We'll help you through it. So if you're not on our mailing list, you can go to runjumpdev.org and click the Join the Discussion link, and that'll take you to our Google group, which has an archive of previous traffic, and you can sign up to get emails. That's great. That's where we put most of our announcements and coordinate events, in addition to social media. And if you'd like to be a RunJumpDev member, all you got to do is answer a couple of questions at our website about who you are, what you want, and that helps us get an idea of who our membership is and guides us going forward. And if you'd like to throw a couple of bucks our way to help pay for ongoing costs, food, supplies for events, stuff like that, we're on Patreon. And we do want to say thank you to all our current patrons who are helping us do things like secure the snacks for this weekend's Global Game Jam, which is a great segue because this weekend we are doing Global Game Jam. And we'll be right here in the building we're currently in, the Newtown Pike BCTC classroom building. And you can come find us. You won't be able to miss us. We'll have signs. There will be a big gathering of people. That starts 5 p.m. on this Friday and runs through Sunday at 5 when we'll have a little party to show off what people have worked on. And we do request that you register at runjumpdev.org. It's not required, but it helps us get a head count for snacks and things. And we've sent out a survey on the mailing list to get more people engaged with the things we're doing this year. So 2016 is a really aggressive year for us, and the board of directors is few and the members are many, so please fill out that survey. If you can offer a little of your time each week to help make these events happen and grow the organization, we'd really appreciate it. We've got the Indie Game of the Month. This month is Rocket League, and we'll be talking about that, the design of the game, February 7th, 1 p.m. at Southland Perk. It'll be interesting. It'll be a departure from our previous narrative games. We've done Undertale and, why am I forgetting? Yes, Beginner's Guide. Yes. So now we're going to switch to something a little more arcadey, and we can talk about mechanics a little bit more. The annual retro gaming event Arcade Louisville is coming up March 4th through 6th, and they bring in dozens of arcade and pinball machines on free play. RunJumpDev and GameDevLou are partnering to present the Indie Alley, which will be an opportunity to show off indie games that are produced around this region. So if you'd like to show off your game, please get in touch with us. We've got a little bit of detail at runjumpdev.org, our website. Coming up in April 30th, Eastern Kentucky University RunJumpDev are hosting the Vector Conference for regional game developers. And the passes are now available. You can come see speakers like Jerry Belich, who's a previous speaker for us, Lisa Brown, talk to representatives from Unity 3D, and meet your neighbors in the region who are making games. You can find more at our site or vectorconf.org for Vector Conference, April 30th. And we've just opened up the call for artists for our second year of Rules in Play, our exhibition in interactive artworks with an emphasis on expression through interaction. So this year we partnered with the Living Arts and Sciences Center. They've got a great new facility that's going to be opening up pretty soon, and they want to fill it with interactive art for July and August, about a month-long period. So if you've got something you want to try or something you want to show, please fill out the submission form at our site or at rulesandplay.org. And finally, I know this is a hell of a year. We're happy to announce Lex Play, which is our consumer-focused gaming expo that we're starting this year. We're putting it on down at the Lexington Convention Center, October 28th. Put it on your calendar. And 29th. That's a Friday and Saturday. And where Vector is kind of like a micro GDC or Sigma Play for developers, this is more like a mini PAX. It's really focused on players and getting people out. We're going to have some experiences, hopefully, that you have to come out to do that are not couch experiences. So very soon we'll be looking for people to help join teams to help build that event. So again, please check out that survey, and if you've got some time, we'd love to have you help out. And we'll be reaching out into the wider community of game players and things here to get that going. I think it'll be really exciting, and it's an ambitious year. So I think that is it for us. Thanks again. M. Joshua, so I'm going to turn it back to you. Just tell us again where we can find you.
Sure. I'm at mjoshua.com. You can look at my trailers there, like the one for That Dragon Cancer and several others. And I'm on Twitter at mjoshua. Just at mjoshua.
Alrighty. Thanks very much. All right. We will see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.